Live?
Yeah, this time we're live.
Okay, that's good to know. All
All
right.
right, guys. Sorry we had technical difficulties, which you guys didn't see. So
No technical difficulties. I'll try my
hopefully the
best.
live will be good this time.
I'll try my best to censor myself.
All right, we have Dave Griffin with us tonight again, and our previous guy he has internet problems, so he will not be joining us. But he
We miss,
tried.
we miss you, John. We'll try again. I will answer your questions as you have them, and if you want to have a conversation in the future, I'm
And
welcome
if
to
he's
do that.
subscribed to the channel, he can ask him on the channel because we're live right now. So as I was asking you, what was your what when we got disconnected or whatever?
Hmm.
What was the question that you were answering in mine?
Uh, let's see. You would ask me about Mike Makes Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where were we in the context of that conversation? Well, do you want to start over, or just like I'll try my best to like encapsulate everything that led up to that, or just jump into that conversation? Um,
I mean, we can start over if you want to.
yeah, let's start over. Let's start over.
I
Let's
mean,
pick
it's
up.
live anyway, so.
Right. So yeah, we lost the first half hour, but let's go ahead and we'll pick up. Uh,
So we talked about the security thing. How you met an actor there, Corey
oh,
Steve.
when I was in the hospital.
Yeah,
Uh,
you met
so
Steve.
so should I retell that story? Since we lost the first version of it.
Yeah, if it makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm comfortable talking about this stuff. People usually are not very comfortable hearing about it. Um, so the story that I've been telling and writing about my life is the part that I haven't spoken about much, which is that I'm a mental health patient and suicide survivor. And when I recorded the episodes for Aloha Oi, um, I had had a suicide attempt the very next day, and I end up in the mental health system. And I get taken to this hospital in the middle of the night, and I was terrified because I've never been through anything like this. And for those who don't know, a psychiatric hospital is maybe a half step up from jail. You're definitely treated like a prisoner. You're treated, they strip you of your belt and your shoelaces and all your personal effects, and you're searched, and it's a pretty demoralizing experience when, especially when you're a 16-year-old kid. And I was terrified, and um, I get put in a room in the middle of the night. There's some other person sleeping in the room who I've never met, and at some point I went to sleep and woke up the next morning, and the other patient had said to me, he's like, "Hey, make sure you come out for breakfast, otherwise, they'll give you whatever the generic awful breakfast of the day is." So I was, being a good little evangelical kid, I was afraid of breaking rules, and even though apparently, trying to kill yourself is a rule to break. Um, and so I'm sitting in the room of this hotel, or this hotel, and um, it's time for me to go out for the first morning meet and greet,
Routine.
right? And so the way this hospital is set up, why do I keep calling it a hotel? Um, is that there's like a main kind of hallway where there's like a pool table and a meeting area where like all the kids can kind of hang out, and then along the walls were the different bedrooms. One side was for the boys, one side was for the girls. So I'm opening the doorway of my hospital and coming into the hallway for the first morning, and I was terrified. And um, as I open the door and step into the hallway to all this like chaos of a psychiatric hospital, there's a gentleman to my right is about 3 steps away from the door. And am my opening the door and stepping into the hallway is what sort of made him look up from the paperwork that he was looking at. And I look at him and he looks at me, And I'm like, wait a minute, why are you here? And he's like, wait a minute, why are you here? And it was the actor who played Rodney Rathbone, and Steve Burns is his name. And he and I had just been recording together the sessions for Aloha Oi. So we were both shocked to meet each other in this psychiatric hospital. And one of the things that I talk about in, I've been writing my life story for a while now, is I think amongst conservative Christianity, there's a lot of, fear of Hollywood and fear of actors, and that actors are just a bunch of narcissists. And one of the I want to dispel that myth in my story, my life story. A lot of the people who were best to me in the course of my life were actors. As I get into this mental health system, which in the United States of America is an abomination, and a cruel treatment of sick people, um, I would learn that I would get to experience what discrimination was. And this is really what starts to change my politics, and a lot of my religious beliefs start deconstructing from this experience. And but at the start of it, the very first person who was ever kind to me, who ever showed me mercy and love and friendship, was an actor. And it was Steve Burns. And he helped my family out when I was at a very difficult time in my life. He showed me a lot of compassion and empathy, something that I would not see from very many people at my church or in the Christian system. Um, and so it was shocking to see that. I guess it was his day job, was he was either a social worker, or he was somehow affiliated with the work. I was on a lot of medication. I don't remember entirely, but I
You
remember
were
being.
all drugged up.
Yeah, oh man, like, and psychiatric meds back in that time, like in '93, like they were over medicating kids. And one of the things that happens to me is I get put on a particular medication that is illegal to give to teenagers now. And the reason it's illegal to give it to teenagers is because teenagers would have rebound suicide attempts. And so I would have a rebound suicide attempt about 3 weeks later. So I was really overly medicated. I didn't know, I don't, a lot of my memories from that era are jumbled, but I do very clearly remember the actor who played Rodney Rathbone was one of the kindest people to me, very generous of spirit and true, like, compassion and love. And if ever he is asked about this, he probably has like a HIPAA commitment where he's not allowed to talk about other people's medical situations. But you may tell him that I give him permission, that he can confirm that we met in a psychiatric hospital, and he can tell his version of that story, and I'm perfectly okay with it.
So you were talking about your blog. Are you still writing it?
Yes, I'm in a bit of a hiatus right now because my living situation is kind of difficult. So I haven't been able to write for about the last 6 months or so. But I've been wanting to write for like the last 3 weeks. It's just been destroying me. Like, I want to write so bad. Um, but I'm in the scramble to like find housing. So that kind of dominates
Dave,
my.
look who joined.
Well,
Hi,
hello there.
hi. I'm Jane. I'm your biggest fan. I'm everyone's biggest fan, but I'm especially your biggest fan. Yeah, so it's so cool to actually see you. Yeah, it's awesome because you're Dave. You're Jimmy Barclay. You're Bimmy Jarkley.
Yeah, I am. It's true. I'm Bimmy.
Yeah,
I
Uh,
tried to ban her, but she keeps getting in.
yeah. And he keeps trying to. It was tougher this week than last week to get in. So yeah, but I found it. I found it nonetheless. You can also hear me like I've been able to find Daniel's podcast a couple of times, and
oh, right on. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I went
I,
with
I see you. I see your
yeah,
comments sometimes on the fan page. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Nice to finally get to meet you in person digitally.
Yeah. So good to finally meet you as well. Yeah. I went to Disneyland with Katie Lee. Well, okay, so
Oh,
she
wow.
didn't mean to go to Disneyland at the same day I did, but I found her there. So yeah.
Nice. Well, and if you're at Disneyland, you're also there with like half a dozen of the other cast members. Just as you walk through the park, you'll hear Corey and everybody, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Will, right?
Uh,
Yep. And I met Minnie Mouse, like the current voice of Minnie Mouse, and that was fun
Oh,
too.
right on.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. What part of the where do you both live? Remind me.
I live in Helena, Montana.
You're in Montana, and Jane, you're where?
Oh, various places. It depends. They keep kicking me
Okay.
out from state to state. So
All
yeah,
right. All right. All right. You are in a state of fluid transportation.
always. Yeah,
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
So, Jane, do you have a question for Jimmy Barkley?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's for Dave, who is Jimmy Barclay, but yeah, because I'm a big fan. So yeah. Speaking of, I think a big fan. Didn't I believe I saw at some point that a tape from Adventures in Odyssey went with one of the astronauts, and maybe you got to meet him or something. How? Tell me
Yes.
about that, and how was that, and all of that.
So, so about what? Let's see. What year was that? I think that was either 2010 or it was the last shuttle mission to the International Space Station. I believe. I could be wrong on that because I know Terry went up twice, so I don't know if it was the first time or the second time. I think it was the second time. But he and his family listened to the show, and I guess they um, had some affiliation with Focus. I don't understand the backstory, but at some point he was given a CD to take up to the International Space Station. And on that CD, I believe it was like the collection that was like about like American, you know, independence, and it's going to have like all the, sort of like US uh what's how can I say this? Um the US historical episodes,
Yeah.
and that come from US history. And so the first two episodes on that collection are Lincoln. And
My favorite.
thank you. And I think it was, it's interesting. So many people tell me that Lincoln is their favorite. And I that I remember at the 2008 autograph table, the number of people that came across that line and told me about Lincoln, that was eye opening to me. It never occurred to me that would be such a popular episode. But so Lincoln's on that collection, and I had wanted to know for years, like, did he play that while he was up in space? I needed to know, was my voice on the International Space Station, right? Like, wouldn't you want to know, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Good.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
So then I guess about a decade later, I don't even remember how, this was before the pandemic, maybe 2018. Um, and he was in town where I live doing a tour for his book. I think, where do I have his book? Somewhere. Uh, and where he shot all these great pictures from space. And so he was giving a talk where he was going to narrate his experience, and I was like, I have to go. I have to, like, meet this guy. I need to ask him, did you listen to my episodes in space? And so I don't even remember how. I think I must have, like, how did I find his agent? I might have asked Nathan Hubler for like contact to his agent or something, but I reached out to his agent and I said, "Hey, I'm the actor that played Jimmy Barclay." One of the few times in my life I've ever tried to like strut like this, like where I'm gonna try and use what teeny tiny little bit of fame I have to a bunch of people who have no idea who I am. And so I reached out to his agent, who of course had never heard of the show, had no idea who I was. And so she passed it, and I said, would there be some way I could meet him just for a few minutes at the end of the show?
Fangirl.
What's that?
Fangirling.
I know
Right.
that.
No, I was totally fangirling. And I was like, and so, I was like, I just, he took my episodes to space. I would like to, meet this man for 5 minutes. And, I'm just curious. And so somehow that the message got sent to him that an actor from the show wanted to meet him, but he didn't know who. And that particular day, he was sick. So he had gotten on stage and he had a cold. I remember very clearly. He wasn't feeling very good. Um, so he had this very low energy. And I'm going to set up probably one of the coolest moments of my life here. So if you'll give me a second. He gets asked a question during the question and answer portion of his show. I don't remember, but it was something like, what quality do you need to have to be an astronaut? I think that was the question.
Did you ask that question?
So he's no, it wasn't me. It was somebody else in the audience. And so he was responding. He was like, "I'm very emotionally even." He's like, "If you're around me, this is his name is Terry Verts, and that he's a very just even tempered, even he doesn't. He's like, you know, when I get angry, when I get happy, I'm just the same." And like, you know, he was making some joke that his wife can never tell how he's feeling because he's just such a neutral emotional guy, right? Like this, he's a
Mhm.
fighter pilot. He's an astronaut. This is a guy who has absolutely no emotional, like he does not get excited, right? Remember this. So so at the end of his show, they had an autograph line where he came out and he was signing copies of his book. So I'm waiting, I'm waiting, you know, waiting for the whole line to go through because I, you know, I just wanted to, you know, just a couple minutes at the end. So finally, we get to the end. I approach the table with my family, and he's like, "So you're the guy that was on Adventures in Odyssey?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, 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 that's me." And he's like, starts to like sign the thing. He's like, "Oh, okay. What character did you play?" And I was like, "Well, the first character I played was episode 2. I played a character named Freddie, and then the next episodes were 3 and 4, and I played a character named Bobby, and then I played a Jeremy and a Mike, and you know, and then at some point they created the character of Jimmy Barclay for me." And as soon as I said those words, he we're live here. I can't swear. He geeked out like uh like a little kid in a candy store. He suddenly like he stopped everything he was doing and he
You
was
can
like,
say he freaked out.
"You're Jimmy Barkley?" And I was like, "The one and only." And he was like, he looked at my kids. He was like, "Oh my god, your dad is famous." And he got up and he was like, can I take a selfie with you?" And this guy who's like a neutral, emotional fighter pilot and astronaut is now like fangirling on me and wanting
Playing the
so
bad girl.
an astronaut asked for a selfie with me. Like that's like the coolest part of my life right there. He was an incredibly, and then he kept trying to explain to the person who is, uh, so you have these like handlers that are helping kind of like monitor the line and thing. So he's trying to explain to this person who I am, and this person has no idea. But clearly, this unflappable astronaut has now been flapped, and you know, the one time in my life that I was able to be cool in front of my kids, and I, I, I very much hope I get to meet him again. I'm very excited that he's running for Senate, and I wish Terry nothing but the best. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy.
So did he get to listen to your tapes in space?
Oh yeah, so I asked that question. I was like, "So I gotta know, did you listen to my episodes?" And he was like, "Oh no, no, that was just a publicity stunt. Like, you know, like I didn't have time." I
Aw,
was like, ah.
come on, man.
I was like, then get back up there and listen to my episodes. Like, right? Like, come on. This
Okay,
isn't
I'll work on
fair.
being an astronaut just so I can listen to your episodes in space.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks. Somebody can please. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking. Just one time. And you know what? If no one else is gonna go, send me. All right. Like I'll
You listen to
go.
your own episodes.
yeah, that's fine.
It'll be
I'm
like
sure I can
someone to watch
steal
over
them.
me.
I can
It'll be
steal
like
them and
someone to
send them
watch
to
over
you.
me.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
It'll be like someone to watch over me.
yeah.
True,
There
except
you go.
like in real
Yeah.
life. I'll be watching over everybody.
Yes.
So
Oh,
what was
yes.
your favorite Odyssey episode ever?
Someone to watch over me. That episode was the most fun. Well, that and probably Terror from the Skies. Uh and Aloha Oi. Those were so much fun to record. Terror from the Skies and Aloha Oi because the cast on both of those was insane. Um, but my personal favorite was Someone to Watch Over Me because that was occurring right as they were going to write me out of the show. And I was really heartbroken. And they bring me in. It might have been the same day that we recorded Coming of Age. I don't remember. Um, if so, that would have been a really interesting double session. But it was just me and Hal and the guy who played Nagel. And I'll tell you, if there's one thing that my dream is to just do an episode with just me and Hal. And that was that day. and to get to not just play against Hal, but to get to play against him doing all these different voices and getting to really experience a lot of his range and his brilliance in the studio. um, Man, what better day could you have as a little 12 or 13-year-old actor than to get to spend it just jam, like I talk about in my blog that, to me, recording, it's like playing jazz. And you've got, you go to some jazz club and like some musician brings his trumpet and gets up on stage and jams with you. It's like that, where you're working with these amazingly talented artists, and it has kind of an improvisational feel, because the question a question that got asked before we lost our last feed was, do you get to see the scripts before you record? And they would never show us the scripts, so you don't know what you're doing until you get there. So there's a feeling of improvisation because you're looking at these lines for the first time right as you go in to record them, which is what helps to keep things spontaneous and fresh. And so in a way, it was like getting to improvise with Hal Smith for a whole session, as he's playing all these different characters, and as I'm, that storyline, it inspired me as a recording artist, as an audio theatrical artist, because it was the first time, other than like the Lincoln episodes, where I got to really understand the full scope of what you can do with the medium of audio theater. That I'm in a plane now, I'm on a pirate ship, I'm being chased by spies,
We're on a motorcycle or
now
something.
I'm up in a spaceship. And like that, what I love about that episode is it's kind of like a greatest hits. It's like you're genre skipping. So I got to be in like a spy thriller, I got to be in a World War II.
Mission Impossible.
I got to do Mission Impossible. I got to do Star Trek. I got to do Pirates. Like that.
Oh,
That episode was so much fun. And one of the things that I've felt very strongly in my life was, if you were to ever say, like, all right, if you could only do one episode ever in your life, what would it be? I would say Someone to Watch Over Me, because I got to do it all in that one little 22-minute, you know, episode. And I got to work with the greatest artist of all time. Just me and him, just jamming away in the studio together, having a blast. Um, that is my favorite episode for sure. It's such a good one. And at the end of it, you find out Jimmy's in a coma. And like, if there's one sort of like trope in Hollywood, it's in like soap operas, it's like the character who has the coma. Like, and I finally got to do that too. So like, not only was I like in space and a pirate, but I also got to have a coma. And yeah, that
well, I don't
was,
think that's something you should be happy about.
well, as an actor, getting to play the weird stuff is sometimes the most fun. So
Oh yeah.
Getting to be the villain, getting to have a good death scene. That acting is all about the art of uh, either fighting, or you're either coming towards your scene partners or away. So all of storytelling is, it's either a love story or a fight. And uh, and you need antagonists in every story, and you need like awful things to happen for your heroes to overcome. So as an actor, we get to do all of those things, and to me, the messier it is, the more fun it is. As like, say like a painter, if you're only allowed to use the color blue, you're going to be kind of bored. But if you get the full range of paint colors and you can do whatever you want on the canvas, that's a lot really exciting for artists. So similar for actors, like the messier the situation is, the more fun it is to step into your imagination and play those things.
So I got a question from Chris, not Chris Anthony. There's a Chris in my group chat that says, if you ran into Jesse as an adult on the show, would you date Jesse?
Jesse.
Jesse Morales?
That's the character from, I'm trying to remember, is that The Trouble with Girls?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
How do I even remember that? Good Lord. Um,
I mean, she was in more than one episode. She was like Donna's second best friend after the whole Karen thing, and
yeah,
Robin
okay,
was off the show
I
by
think
that
I was
point.
in the studio with her a couple times. She might have been one of the ones that was there when my voice broke.
But he
Uh,
asked, would you date her though?
well, I would be open to whichever characters they would want my character to date. Because a thing I never got to experience in the storytelling with the character of Jimmy was him getting to have romantic interests. Uh,
Oh,
so
he
I,
liked
I
Connie
Well, yeah,
and
but like
Lucy.
that but that's not like a mutual
I
romantic
know.
interest. That's an infatuation. So to me, what would have been really fun for that character is like who does Jimmy fall in love with later in life, right? Like
Let's
um
get to now. How many kids does he have?
right. And I think like finding like a great character to go against Jimmy would that would be so interesting.
Me.
Uh we never we never got there, but that was a storyline like, one of the hopes I had back when I was a kid recording with them was like, hey, maybe they'll keep my character around. I'll get to work at Wits End. And then, Jimmy starts dating, which is like almost every TV series, the way to bring in other guest stars is and then, finally Jimmy
Simon
falls in
Cowell.
love and, gets to have his own little Jimmy someday, that
Simon Cowell can be the next Jimmy Barclay.
right.
Yeah,
So
well,
that
but it's only Kathy Buchanan that writes the love stories these days, and so everyone else is like, no, characters can't get married. So we get like a marriage. Other than the massive proposals that happened in like
right.
one episode, we don't get a lot of we don't get a lot of marriages on Odyssey, especially not even kids who grow up and all of that. So far,
That was
Lucy
just
Lee Phillips and Jack Davis did get married.
true. Yeah, that was something. So I wouldn't be opposed to Jimmy and Jesse. I would love to have seen. I would have loved to have seen a late teens, early 20s Jimmy getting to like date people and grow
oh
as a human
wait,
and
Jimmy
have
did get to
have
date
messy love
Felicia.
stories. Sorry, go
You
ahead.
did. You did get one. You got one in
Well, I'm
Living in the
living in the
Gray.
gray. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but
What was her name?
at that
Felicia.
point the relationship had already been established between the two of them, and so
Yeah.
she's kind of a character that's used as a particular storytelling device. What we don't get to see is like Jimmy having the nerves of like a first date, the nerves of like you know uh the common comic tropes out of uh, love storytelling where two characters misinterpret each other and then they break up and then they come back together, and there's so much humor that could have been mined, so many great like heartfelt moments that as an actor I would love to have experienced to get to play that kind of stuff. And it just didn't happen for reasons myriad, I'm sure. Plus, it's a show for 10-year-olds, so how much are 10-year-olds gonna like? Although I'm gonna disagree. I don't think it's a show for 10-year-olds anymore. It's a
It's a
show
show for
for everybody who's grown up on it since they were 10. I had someone reach out to me recently that was in their 60s that has been listening to it since they found it when they were in their 20s.
In their
Um,
60s?
yeah, and he plays it for his grandkids, and so like to me, it's a show that's for everybody. But in the mind of the creative team, the demographic is 8 to 12. So that was one of the problems they ran into with Jimmy as a teenager, was thinking that like I was too old for the target demographic. But my argument was like, well, if kids started listening to this when I was 10, they would also be my same age now. They would be teenagers going through things, and like, why can't we use the show for that? So I would have loved to have gotten to explore some of those potential storylines as an actor. I think with that character, it would have been fun. Like you could have had so many dating mishaps with Jimmy, and like, and then finally when he finds the right person, and I think the audience who spent so much of their lives with that character would have loved to have seen Jimmy grow and get to have his own kids, and because all those people are getting married and having kids in their lives too, and you could have had this character be a vehicle for all of that. But such is life, and like at some point the creative team's like, well, we've got like 900 other characters, we've got to attend to those stories too.
Well, and
Um,
it's also, since it's your fault that suddenly people started aging. Up until no one aged. So then they had the problem of who's aging and who isn't. So I think you.
right? Like, look,
Are,
I break a lot of ground, right? I'm an icon, a legendary character here, where yeah, that I got to have like a second life as my character became a teenager. To me, it made perfect sense. Like, the people who like Jimmy are also my age, so why wouldn't, I remember, when I get sick, there's a story I write about where I tell the crew, because I was going through suicidal depression. I said, I think we should do an episode on this, and it might help people that are out there struggling with the same things that I am. And
And
so,
didn't you guys do that?
no, 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 no. When I said those words, the room got deadly quiet. That was one of the times I realized I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be talking about my health problems to
And I
people.
got another question.
Mhm.
For people just starting out listening to Odyssey and their character review and their family review, what episode do you recommend?
Family vacation. If you're starting, start at the beginning, like with this is the journal of Jimmy Barclay, and but really, I would say if somebody's starting to listen to Odyssey for the first time, they should start all the way back at episode 1 and just listen to
Which
it
plot?
chronologically, because the early years, and those, especially like the first 6 months we were recording, there was such a unique intimacy in the studio that I think really uh, is palpable in those first episodes. And the show now is very different. In some ways, it's kind of cartoony. Um, Back then, it was really just authentic, like human storytelling in a way that was really just sort of intimate and kind. This. I think there. I remember my feeling as a kid. Not, this is all interpreted through my adult brain. But as a kid, I remember thinking I could feel like at the beginning that we were recording, everybody kind of had this like nervous energy, like, is this show going to work or not? By the time Jimmy comes along, the show is working quite well enough that they decide to build a family that they're going to like ride for a number of years, because I was young enough and they knew that they were going to have some time with me. Um, and so, yeah, if I'm suggesting to somebody who's listening to it for the first time, if you want to, which Barkley episode to listen to, start at the beginning with Family Vacation. If you want to listen to the entire series, the episode I would have you start with is episode number 1, because I think really, like, then you get to ride all 1,000 episodes and get to really see kind of the peaks and valleys of the eras. And a lot of the later eras are referencing the earlier eras. You've got like, now it's like Star Trek, where you've got so many episodes and so many, it's been going on for 40 years. Um, but I think to me, there's something really special about those first episodes and that first kind of 100 episodes we created. Um, I think that's some of the finest work we ever did. Not that the work that came later wasn't good, but it was fantastic too. But I think there was something really special about those first episodes, because I think if those episodes didn't exist, no one would have gotten hooked on the show initially. So, like, I was in 3 of the first 4 episodes. So if you're listening to this for the first time, you're catching kind of the whole vibe of it. And yeah, so yeah, listen to it in order, and yeah, listen to your Barkley episodes in order.
do you
And if
listen
you
to
close,
the current
if
episodes?
you
Say that again, Jane.
Oh, do you listen to the current episodes? Do you still listen, or did you stop after your
I
episode?
ne- I never listened. So this is one of the things that like always breaks the heart of fans is I never listened. I could never find when it was on in my area. And so when I was doing the show, I would get tapes, which sounds like so old. Um, and
boomer,
that that was the only way I could hear the show, was the tapes they would send me. So the only way I would ever get to hear other characters is if it wasn't a 2-part episode. The other side of the tape would have an episode with other characters in it. A couple times I had asked, like, when is this on in my area? And this is pre-internet, so it's hard to find anything. And so they gave me a sheet that had all the radio stations, I think in like California or Southern California. And I remember my family was a TV family. We didn't listen to the radio very much. So I would go out to my mom's car and turn the car on and try and scan the dial and see if I could find the show. And I was never able to. Twice in my life, um, we had been on family trips, my actual real family. We were on vacations. And one time in Bristol, Tennessee, my dad turned on the radio and suddenly my voice came out. And then another time, the next year, we were in Washington D.C. and my dad turned on the radio, and it was not only was it my voice coming out, but it was the episode where George goes to Washington D.C. for some reason that I don't remember. Where like the kids think the parents are getting divorced or something, and so like the odds of that was so bizarre. Um, but so I never really got to hear many of the other characters, and this was one of the frustrations I had working in kind of that family setup, was that I didn't get to like interact with a lot of the other super popular characters over the years, because I'm in this like family sitcom. um, and then I was never able to find, other than like I would get the collections. um, but I think to me, my fascination was always with seeing how what we had recorded in the studio, how the post production had like turned it into this whole show. And so most of my experience of listening to Odyssey was listening to the tapes I had done and trying to study from them, and because I would take the scripts home and trying to learn like how this production was being done, which takes they used. Oh, hey, that scene got cut out. Um, so a lot of times like fans will be like, all right, Dave, so like, season 7, like this storyline, the Green Ring, or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, I know it because I follow like the fan pages, and I'm always watching you guys talk about them. I've got my Bibles, like, so I know what's going on in the world of Odyssey somewhat. But I'm also, as somebody who is, on disability and economically challenged, and going through a lot of hard things, I don't get to consume much entertainment at all anymore, sadly.
Well,
Now, when we tried last,
oh, sorry. I was gonna say Katie's trying to go through all the episodes, and I was trying to show her how to use the app because I'm close personal friends with Katie. Even though
Right.
she tries to get away from me, but I was trying to show her how to use the app, and for whatever reason, it's tough for me to get her to do them in order so she can hear all the other ones. But she's trying. She's trying.
She's been in most of them, so I don't know that she's missed too many.
That's true. But unfortunately I gotta go. It was so cool to meet you, and maybe someday I'll meet you in person. I'll get you to sign a trading card, and that would be awesome. But I'm your biggest fan, and now we're close personal friends too.
Yes, we are. Where did my trading card go? Where's my
Oh,
trading card?
do you have both Jimmy and Retro Jimmy, or are you missing one of them?
Let's see here. Where did that go? It was right here on my desk for forever. Oh, did that get lost? No. That's like precious to me. Where did that go?
I'll
Uh,
pick another one, and
it's
then
the one. I think it's the one with the red hat.
okay.
I don't know. Is there a second one? Like I
Yeah,
only got.
two. There's one that's all shiny.
I'm like, now I'm panicking. Like, where did my card go? That's like one of my favorite things in my world. I'll find it. I'm sure it's somewhere on my desk.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there. But I'll bring you the other one sometime.
Excellent. Well, so wonderful and lovely to meet you. And yes, we will bump into each other at some point. I'm sure of it.
I'm quite certain.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
so when I first interviewed you, because it was all audio and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about how you got started into acting.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of want to tell the viewers who are watching how you got started into acting?
I got started into acting. We had just moved from Texas to California, and I had done a few plays in church and school, and I think my mom could tell that I enjoyed it. I was a kid that regularly I was naturally writing plays on my own. We would have stuffed animals. I would do little puppet shows. I'm a person that I see the world through characters and stories. I think I grew up in a family that watched a lot of TV. We read a lot of books. So storytelling is something that was always really captivating to me. And somehow I was sort of naturally good at it. I dive into this more in my blog work, but we had just moved. I was very sad. I was a kid that struggled with a lot of depression, and we had moved. Moving from California or from Texas to California was so different. And I felt like a fish out of water. I didn't have any friends, and so my mom found this local community Christian theater. For her, it always had to be Christian, so that she felt safe enough with, for the kids to do it. And
Yeah.
she signed me up. And the first play that they were doing, I think they'd existed for a while, but they were doing a play with um, with Joni Erickson Tata. My apologies if I have mispronounced her name. Called Wheels, and there was a production. It was a show that she had that toured, and different groups would like learn all the lines and the music and do all the choreography, and we would spend weeks and weeks and weeks, months on this, and then she would show up the night of the performance and it would go off without a hitch, and then she would go do it with like another group somewhere else. So so it was like a one-time performance. I got cast as one of the leads, and I'd never been a lead actor in a play before. I was always happy to be like one of the background characters, just like
That's what I was in church too.
right. Like I was happy. Like
I was a sheep.
I was, I think, a couple times I was a soldier. I was, or I'm sure in Texas, this play I did had something to do with the state of Texas. So I was an armadillo. I don't know.
I was a sheep,
Um,
and I only had one line, "Bah."
hey, you know what? But that line matters. And
So did Bernard in the Odyssey in Randy's debut.
yeah, and so I get cast, and we do the show, and something about it clicked in my brain, and it made sense, and I was good at it, um, and during the rehearsals for uh, that show, we get called. The woman who ran the theater called up about 8 of us, as I recall, five, six, seven, 8 of us, at the end of rehearsal one day, and she's like, "Hey, come on up." And hey, there's this radio show that's looking for kids. Why don't you go audition? And that was really where it started. Was this community theater? The woman who ran it, went to, I believe, the same church as the original executive producer of the show, and he knew that she had a kids theater, and they were looking for kids. And out of that group of kids that went and auditioned, I think at least two of them were also used, albeit only for a couple episodes. But I was the main get out of that group of kids for sure. But yeah, that was where it started. Was just community theater, in the neighborhood, and who she was connected to led to the next thing, and I went in, and the audition really played to my strengths. I was always really good at reading out loud in school. If you ever had to like, you know, we would be reading from the same book together, and everybody does a paragraph. I loved that because it was really easy for me to do, to read out loud and to put emotion into it. So I already had an affinity for acting. Well, then this kind of acting, what you do is they hand you the script, and they're like, all right, go. And it was easy for me to like read it and to emote appropriately. um, and I tell people, if you're interested ever in doing voiceover work, the number one skill you need to have is to be able to read out loud correctly with the proper emotion, because that's the main skill set that you use in the work. um, and so I was good at that. And so this was, and then they brought me in with a girl that was from the theater company that I was with, so I knew her and I was comfortable with her. So it was like the perfect storm of like who you knew got me in the door, and then the circumstances played to my favor, and that was kind of the start of it. And then I think I'll take it one step further. After I did the first episode, there was a moment. So in episode 2, there's two characters, I believe, Craig and Freddie. I was originally Craig, and he's the lead kid. And about, I don't know, an hour into recording, 30 minutes into recording, maybe it was pretty fast. They switched me and the other actor. And it was my first time getting like recast. And I was very hurt. I didn't know what I had done wrong. I realize now it was just an energy thing. Like I had a better energy to play Freddy than to play the jokester kid. Um, but I think probably what the production team saw and what I learned in that moment was like you just be flexible and go with it, and I had that skill set too. And so I think that really was kind of all those things colliding is what, made me an actor.
So you were in a mission, well, of course, a mission for Jimmy.
Mhm.
And I asked you last time if the actual missionary Dan Sidro was there.
Mm.
Did you do a little bit more research? Was he actually there?
There was an actor in the studio playing that part. I didn't know if he was actually that person or not. I assumed at the time that he was just an actor. I don't have any further information on that. Was that a real person? The
Dan
character?
Sidro? Yeah, he's a real person.
Oh, okay. Yeah, didn't know. So yeah, maybe that was really him. I do recall that being one of the sessions where I was not alone, and that there were other actors in the studio that day. Some of my memory blurs a little bit because in the era when I was recording in Pomona, um, I often would record by myself. Um, and whereas the era when the production team moves to Colorado Springs and they fly out, they would book the whole cast for like a whole week at a studio. Here, I lived 3 to 5 miles away from the original facility, so I could come in anytime. I could come in on a Tuesday or a Thursday. But I recall on that session, there were other actors, and I can see his face kind of in my mind. I guess that would have been Dan. But I didn't know. I just assumed he was an actor playing a part.
You remember Donna's dog, Harry?
No, I have no memory of this. Donna had a dog.
Yeah, in album 21,
Mm-hmm.
making the grade. No, no, pet peeves. Pet
Mm.
peeves.
Okay, now you're starting to tickle some memories here. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Harry chewed up your favorite baseball bat.
See, the thing is like, so when we're recording, we record so fast, that I often would forget details of the episodes by the time I got
I
home.
listened to it today before church.
Okay, well, see that, so that keeps it fresh. Yeah, but when you're recording, often like I would forget like what there's sometimes even what it was about by the time I got home. I'd be so tired because doing this kind of art really takes a lot out of you emotionally, and it's really exhausting. Um, yeah, I say to this day, of all the jobs I've ever had in my life, doing a day's worth of recording is probably one of the most tiring. I would be exhausted in a way that I can't even explain. And so you often you don't, a detail, like for years, I forgot Stewart existed. I didn't realize, like people would be like, oh, how's Stewart? Like as a joke. And I'm like, who's Stewart? They're like, Jimmy's brother. I'm like, Jimmy has a brother? Like, because I never recorded with an actor who played the brother, to me, there isn't a brother in my head. And so some of the details of like, things that they did, or, like I forget that stuff unless I, refresh my memory ahead of time. So yeah, now that you're saying that, that's right. Like Donna did have a dog. Yeah. Um, and we did an episode called Pet Peeves. And I think that was one of the last ones we did, actually, if I remember correctly. Uh,
That one was funny.
Good. I'm glad. I like making people laugh. That's that's my one of my favorite things to do as an actor is to make people laugh.
Or on your birthday when you got the Zappazords game,
Say
Instant
that again.
Temptation. When you got the Zappazords game.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. By the way, somebody out there has made a Zapazoids game. I have heard. It exists. Or it existed at one time. I put the plea out there. If that person ever comes across any of these interviews, I need to play that game. The real life Jimmy Barclay needs to play real life Zapazoids. Like that needs to happen.
We
We'll
can do
live
it live
stream it.
on stream.
Yeah, yeah, we'll live stream it, right?
Next time we interview, it'll be only Zapazoids. No talking. Because you need to concentrate for Zapazoids.
I take gaming seriously. I'm a serious gamer. I want to. Yeah, I'll have to make sure I'm fully dialed in so that I can play the game appropriately.
Do you play any video games now?
I
Today?
do. I love to play video games with my kids. It's probably the number one thing that we do together. Um, my family is definitely a gaming family.
You guys play Fortnite together?
No, they didn't. They never got into Fortnite. They like to play. What game are they into right now?
Minecraft?
Oh yeah, lots of Minecraft. Xenoblade series is the game that they're in right now. I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, the sequel, which is an amazing game. And I love the sort of open world sandbox games, Assassin's Creed kind
That's
of
kind of like
thing.
what Fortnite is an open world.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The games I don't like, I'm not really into like first person shooters. I don't like games that are, well, I guess Assassin's Creed is rather violent, but I'm not into things that are like, overly violent or
In Fortnite, they don't show real blood. You just die.
right. No, and for me, I love exploring. What they do with video games now compared to where when I was a kid, I feel so
At
old for saying
Pac-Man.
words. Right. I remember when Pac-Man came out. I was like 4. Um,
Tetris.
Tetris was huge when I was 11. So like that they've got games with like the quality of not just like the world building and the writing that they do, but the acting. The acting now is so amazing. The voiceover work, the performance capture. As an actor, like that's something I really want to explore. Is at some point I'd love to do some video game work.
I've
Um,
been playing Life is Strange a lot lately.
like a stranger. Is that
No,
the name
Life
of
is
it?
Strange.
Oh, Life is
Life is
Strange.
Strange, yeah.
I don't know that one. Life is Strange. Let me write that down.
That's it's like a choose your own adventure kind of game.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. I'll have to check that out. That sounds like right up my alley.
And it's free on the PlayStation 5 if your kids have a PlayStation 5.
Nice, nice. That we need to get that one. I've got the 4. I need to scrape together $500 and get the 5.
Well, maybe if you get some ad revenue on YouTube or something.
Maybe.
I don't know if I'm sponsoring anything or not right now.
Oh,
Well, focus on the family, maybe. They haven't shut my podcast down yet.
well, whether they pay or not will be interesting to see.
And next time we're gonna have Chris Anthony on here
Oh, nice. Tell Chris I said hello. I love her dearly.
in August. We're gonna set something up in August, and Stephanie Betty, one of the or Beauty, however you say her last name, met her at the One Grand Party,
Oh, nice.
and we're gonna do it when everybody can join.
Good, good.
Although Marshall Younger said my podcast might be taken over by Chris Anthony.
She is one of the sweetest, most wonderful people you will ever get to interact with, and I hope you have a wonderful interview with her. She's great. Yeah, please tell her I said hello.
And I friends with her on Facebook, so
Nice, nice, nice.
I,
Yeah,
I, I had
sorry.
to make a new I had to make a new Facebook account. My other one got hacked,
That happens. That happens.
but it's a good thing I have your phone number though. So
Yes, yes, we will be able to interact.
what were you gonna say before I interrupted you?
I don't remember now. Oh, just that most of the actors I've worked with on Adventures in Odyssey are really lovely people. So if you get to interview them, you're going to have a great time. It's a wonderful group of people who have a lot of love for each other, and yeah, Chris is fantastic.
I'm trying to get Katie Lee, but she doesn't want to come on.
Why not?
I think it's because she has her own podcast right now or something.
Oh well, that could see a competing podcast. That opens some See, I don't have a podcast, so I'm happy to just skip
No,
on to the
you
next.
kind of do. You have a blog.
Yeah, true, true.
Have you
Yeah,
ever thought about storytelling with Dave?
storytelling with Dave. Oh, as like a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, I am trying to come out with something at some point here once I can get kind of stabilized in my personal life. My goal is to be putting out content in very short order.
Where would you put it out at?
Probably all the main platforms. It depends on what I decide to do. One of my things is if I did a podcast, that's going to take up a tremendous amount of bandwidth of creative energy. I also have like audio theatrical shows I've been wanting to produce for years. I'm also going to do an audio version of the blog. So I'm trying to figure out kind of what is the right product to make, or what's the right content to make now at this time. And then once I determine what kind of content I want to make, then that'll probably tell me which platforms to put it on.
Because if so, I could give you a shout out and stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate your generosity. That's very, very
And I
kind.
wrote my own audio drama,
Oh, did you? What's it
but
about?
it
Can
hasn't
you
been
talk
produced
about
yet.
it?
It's kind of like superhero versus supervillains,
Mm-hmm.
and it has some Odyssey characters in it.
Oh, nice.
And the evil villain is Doctor Blackboard.
Oh my goodness, that sounds pretty epic.
He teaches the kids about evil things.
Good. That sounds
And
pretty.
Mr. Wit Taker, instead of Whitaker, it's Wit Taker.
Gotcha, gotcha. Got to make sure you don't do any copyright infringement.
Yeah, that's why I spaced it out. Mr. Wit Taker.
Very clever, sir.
That's me in the story. Saves the
Nice,
kids.
nice, nice. I like that. What a great imagination.
And Chris, one of the guys that helped me come up with the idea,
Mm-hmm.
was like, maybe Dave Griffin wants to be in it as a Griffin Dave or Barry Barclay.
I think my days of being a Barclay are long over, but yeah, I'm sure we can find something.
Because we want to produce it as an audio drama.
Right. Oh, nice. Good, good.
And then give it out to like Phil Lawler or Nathan Hubler.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that would be pretty interesting to see if that happens.
I think make what your heart tells you to make and go find the audience that is out there for it. There's an audience for everybody.
There's
And
going to be 20 scenes.
nice. Nice.
And Dr. Blackboard already tied up one of the heroes.
That sounds pretty intense. That sounds like epic storytelling.
It's almost like Dr. Blackboard, but it's Dr. Blackboard.
Mm. I like that. I like that.
I told Nathan Hooper that, and he's like, "Well, send me the script when it's over, and I'll look it over."
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It could be an Odyssey episode. He said.
Like I said, these are very kind, lovely people. Like the everybody I ever worked with was incredibly loving and kind, and they will treat you really, really nicely. And yeah, and jump on that encouragement. If he's saying send a script, send it. You might get some good notes, or it might inspire him to write some stuff, or who knows. Like
It could be half of an Odyssey episode.
jump on those opportunities, is what I say.
He says it may not be, so don't be disappointed if it's not. I'm only the writer.
That's show business right there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The number of times I've written things that never get produced it's the story of every creative person's life.
Yeah, so I also interviewed Phil Lawler too.
Nice, nice.
But you were the first ever interview on our channel.
Thank you. I remember I was telling somebody that today. I was like, I think I was their first interview. So how many episodes have you done now?
We've done a lot. I don't know how many episodes are on the channel, like 79 episodes or
Oh
something.
my goodness, that is a lot. You are putting out a lot of content.
Well, we have 188 subscribers, so we want to keep them entertained.
Rock on.
We
That's
also
awesome.
interviewed Bob Smithhauser too.
Nice, nice. Nice. Well, I'm glad we were able to, with that first episode, to unlock the
True
world of
story.
the Odyssey cast and crew. I'm glad I was able to help do that.
Yeah, that when you were on the episode, that really kicked off, and people were like wanting more Jimmy, more Jimmy.
Right? That's, everybody wants more Jimmy.
Bring it back on the podcast. Bring it back on.
Thank you for having me again. I'm happy to be drop in once in a while and be a regular friend.
So you're a fan on the pod. You have fans on this podcast.
Awesome. Well, to all of the people who are fans of the show and the podcast, thank you so very much. That's
Well,
great.
they're watching, so you can tell them right now.
Thank you. It's I love getting to interact with the fans, and I love doing things that the fans enjoy. Uh, and so this is a great way to do that.
Except being in my audio drama.
Well, we'll figure it out. No, no, no. I'm sure we can find a character, a little cameo part. I can do something. I'm sure.
Maybe Jimmy can appear as one line saying, "What?"
My guess is that I think we can find a clever way to do something interesting that won't impinge on any copywritten intellectual material owned by an organization with a lot of lawyers.
Now I don't want to get sued.
Right, right, right. That's no.
That would not be a good thing because then people would be like, "Where'd he go?"
You got to walk a fine, delicate line.
Got to draw that line in the sand.
That's right.
Other than other stuff, what's your perfect way to eat potatoes?
Ooh, that's a great question because I love to cook. Um, and the potato is a remarkably versatile vegetable. You can do a lot with it. You can make French fries. You can mash it. You can boil it. You can scallop it. I love scalloped potatoes. I just made mashed potatoes 2 nights ago. I made some coq au vin with some mashed potatoes. Um, I like roasting potatoes. I like putting them in soups. That's hard.
If Stephanie was here, she would have asked you that question.
I think my favorite form of potatoes is probably scalloped potatoes. I love
Ooh, those are good.
scalloped potatoes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially around Thanksgiving.
Or potatoes au gratin. Like, give me some, layers of cheese and some cream in there and some
Especially around
maybe a
Thanksgiving.
pepper. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the potato.
I don't remember if you told me you drank caffeine, but what's your favorite kind of soda?
Root beer. I'm a root beer guy.
I'm a Dr. Pepper guy.
Dr. Pepper would be a second choice. I would go root.
Strawberries and cream.
I'd go root beer, Dr. Pepper, cola.
Have you had this flavor yet?
I have not. I have not. I mostly drink water now. I have not had the Dr. Pepper strawberries and cream yet.
It's really good. There's a new flavor out called blackberry.
That sounds epic. I do like blackberries.
What's your favorite fruit then?
Melon. I love
Melon.
melons and not necessarily watermelon. I like all the other melons. I love cantaloupe. I love honeydew. When they're ripe, a ripe muskmelon, a ripe honeydew. There's a melon they have out here in California. I don't know if they have it across the country, but called a Santa Claus melon. That is when it's ripe. It is the most sugary melon I've ever had. In fact, right around like December, January, I start like being like, okay, I'm ready for summer to come, and summer has not arrived until the melons show up in the produce section of the local grocery store. And then once it's melon season, I feel like, all right, it's summer. So yeah, melons are probably my favorite fruit.
What TV show did you watch growing up as a kid?
A lot. My family watched a lot of TV, so I watched all the shows that were kind of the classic, family sitcoms. As an evangelical kid, I was very media restricted. My mom wouldn't let me watch a lot of stuff. So the stuff that I could watch was very like geared towards, family entertainment. So any kind of family sitcom, Family Ties, Cosby Show.
Like Family Guy or
Yeah, I never got quite into Family Guy. That was later. That because but I was into The Simpsons. If I watched all the like ABC had a lineup for kids back in the like early '90s that would come out on Friday night or Thursday nights. I don't remember.
Did you ever get into like Recess or Lilo and Stitch?
No, that was all after me. That was an era more kind of in between me and my kids.
Or did you grow up watching Blue's Clues at all?
Nope, that was my kids. That so I'm almost 50. I just turned 48 last month. So for me, like Blue's Clues came along when I was in my 20s. So by that point, I was, you know, not
I
watching
think we
TV.
talked about that last time too.
Yeah.
Is it very weird talking about like kid shows on a Odyssey podcast?
Say that again.
Is it weird talking about kid shows on an Odyssey podcast?
Why? Not at all, because Adventures in Odyssey is a kids show. So it makes sense to talk about kids shows on a show that celebrates a kids show.
And the reason I asked about Blue's Clues is because I have a Blue's Clues bedspread.
Nice. Yeah, it's a little blurry. I can kind of make it out. Yeah.
Look at how high my bed is. I have to literally jump on it
Nice, nice.
to get on it.
Looks
So
pretty.
do you so do you do anything fun for 4th of July with your family?
No, actually, Fourth of July was we like growing up. Fourth of July was that holiday where we always were somewhere different. We would usually be on some family trip somewhere. So I've celebrated Fourth of July is like all over the country with my kids. I used to work a lot on the Fourth of July when I was working in the event industry because you get good pay on holidays. And then so I kind of got turned off of like crowds, and then I was involved in a shooting some years back,
Ooh.
and I really don't like being in crowds anymore. Um, and so yeah, my kids and I usually like for Fourth of July we just kind of stay home because that's the day when like everybody else goes out to do stuff, and then we just kind of like stay local and um, keep things kind of low key. Because yeah, the one thing after you've been in a shooting, suddenly like the sound of fireworks isn't that much fun anymore.
Do you mind talking about what happened to you getting involved in that?
Yeah, it was so I was in a location uh where there were a lot of people. There was a bar attached to the facility that I was at, and it was on a night of where daylight savings ended. And I think some people showed up and came through the facility to go to the bar, thinking that because the clocks get set back, that there would be another hour for them to drink at the bar. And I don't know what caused it. I don't know any of the details, but we were sitting there. Now, to back this up, a thing that I would want to paraphrase this is that I had just had one of my fans had their roommate was at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, the night that the gunman showed up and killed 49 people.
Mm.
And so that had been in my mind a lot, like the vulnerability. At that point, that was like the third person I knew that had been in a mass shooting event. And so it was in the forefront of my brain that like this stuff can happen wherever you're at. And as we were sitting there, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, three, I don't remember. All of a sudden, you hear pop, 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 bang, bang, and somebody shout. I didn't know what it was at first, and somebody shouted, "Oh dang, they're shooting." Oh dang wasn't what they said, and my immediate thought was that it was a mass shooter coming in with an AR-15. And so my gut reaction was there were two exits in the building that I was in. And so people were diving under the tables, and probably very stupidly, I was afraid that if I dived under a table and it was someone with an AR-15, I was afraid that they would be able to walk through the room and just shoot people that were hiding. So my thought was like get out of the building as fast as I could. So I ran down a hallway to an exit, and like a bullet hit the wall right next to me. And I
Mm.
remember it was one of those moments in my life where, you pray your guts out, as I'm running.
Count your blessings.
I'm like, please God, do not let me get shot in the back. And it turned out that it was a gunfight between, some drug dealer and an off-duty cop who was working security, and they both emptied their guns and missed each other, and a guy who was waiting for his Uber got killed in the crossfire. So it was upsetting. I had a lot of PTSD for a long time, still do sometimes. I don't like crowds. I don't like loud sounds. Can really, if somebody slams a car door, or, fireworks can kind of trigger it. So yeah, I think that experience really, I was always kind of anti-gun as a mental health patient, but to be in a shooting like that and to have all the narratives of like the gun world just fail. So like a good guy with a gun didn't make it better. A
Hmm.
good guy with a gun did not stop the bad guy with a gun from killing someone. And in fact, it just meant that there were more bullets in the air. You realize how vulnerable you are. You realize that just because somebody's in a bad mood, they could kill you, and there's nothing you can do. Um, so long as we're in a country where we let people have guns. And now a person's dead. That guy is in prison for the rest of his life. Um, over a bar fight, like, and the guy he was mad at, that he shot at, he missed, and like that guy did, live just fine, and everybody involved was traumatized, and dozens of lives affected, and hundreds, actually. There were a lot of people in the facility at that time. So it was it was a pretty traumatic experience, and I definitely think we need a whole lot fewer guns in this world. And
Oh well, someone I just opened this chat, here on the podcast, and I want to read a comment that someone posted
uh-oh.
that you would appreciate.
Oh, okay.
So they said, Dave, a podcast would be amazing. I enjoyed reading your blog. I appreciate how vulnerable and honest you were.
Oh, thank you. What is that person's name?
Elana Marie.
Alana, Alana.
A Launa. Yeah.
Alana. Thank you, Alana. That's wonderful. Thank you for reading. Thank you for reading the whole thing. A lot of people kind of read it and get freaked out, and thank you so much for that encouragement. I'm thinking very strongly about doing a podcast. Um, my main thing is like the amount of work that goes into it, like as you've experienced. Like, so do I do a podcast by myself? Do I have guests? Do I have co-hosts? Where do I find all these people? What do I want to talk about? Because one of my problems is like I want to talk about a lot of different things. Um, Currently in my life, I'm a deconstructed former evangelical. That's something I want to talk about, but it's not the only thing I want to talk about. And so, one of the things about podcasts is you kind of find your niche. I don't know what that is yet. Um, I don't, I have a lot of things I want to talk about. I'm interested in politics. I'm interested in, um, mental health. I'm interested in, disability, and the way we treat people who are disabled in this country is a crime against humanity, and it needs to be talked about more. So yeah, I don't know what, but knowing that folks out there want that content, it makes me very seriously consider it even more. So thank you for the encouragement, Alana. If I'm saying your
Oh,
name
and
right.
Chris Anthony says hi, hi from her.
Hi, Chris. I love you. Big hugs. I hope we get to see each other again someday.
Well, maybe if you're free on August, you can we could do 2 interviews.
Could dip in for a second. Well, I wouldn't want to take any shine away from Chris. She deserves her own moment too. Like and let's be real here. Chris Anthony has done all 1,000 episodes, so
Yeah,
she's
she's in
gonna
every
need
single one.
she's gonna need some time. Like you're gonna need a lot of time to ask her questions. So I wouldn't want to impose, but I will say one of my favorite moments with Chris was we had a dinner in preparation for the recording of the 50th album, and this was coinciding with like the 20th anniversary. So we had a dinner at the Magic Castle, and I hadn't seen everyone in years, and um, Donald Long and Ginny showed up, and because they were going to be in the episodes,
Two great
and
people.
right, oh no, they're wonderful, wonderful people,
We interviewed them
and
both.
and they so we're all just kind of sitting there, and when it got out that we all were going to be recording the next day or whenever it was, Chris was she said she was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are going to be recording together. I'm going to bring pie." And everybody was like, "Yeah, sure, she's going to bring pie." Chris Anthony brought pie. She showed up during our session and brought pie, and it was one of like the sweetest, most loving. Like, I absolutely adore Chris Anthony. She's one of my favorite people in the entire world. I love her dearly, and I hope someday we get to play in a studio again together. And I miss her dearly. And I
Well,
love
you
her.
never know. My audio drama.
Maybe. Hey, you never know which way it's going to go. As a creative person, I try to keep my options open.
I could have Chris as the narrator.
Or you know, or give her some range, give her some options. Maybe there's a character she wants to play. I don't know. It's the nice thing about acting and performing is that a lot of us have very different skill sets, and we all usually want to like try new things and explore and stretch our range, but also do what's comfortable and what we're good at. So we all have those things, and certainly she does. She's had a really remarkable career.
So what do you think I could do to get on Odyssey?
I don't know. I have no idea. I get asked that question kind of regularly. I would say to improve chances, because don't think of it like any other show. So, what would it take to get on to any other show? Is that they would want to see a voiceover demo and listen to your skill set, your range. If you have other work that you've done that you could like cut into a demo reel, every voiceover art. I need to put together a new demo reel. I haven't done that in years.
Do you have your original demo reel?
Yes, I think it is in a chest in my room, and I haven't listened to it in 31 years.
Do you think we could
Um,
have a little listen to it live
well, I would need to find a tape player because it's an actual tape. So I don't even think I have one of those in my house. Um,
next time?
and it would be interesting actually to go through it, because like you would be hearing me at a time in my life when I was really really heavily medicated, um, but also at one of like the happiest moments of my life because Corey Burton was like directing that tape, and Mark Grau was. Uh, I tell the story of that day when I went in to record the demo. We were at Mark Grau Studios. Mark is a legend in the industry, and he's done voiceover demos for every big name actor in the industry. This he's made like probably 10,000 voiceover demos over the last 50 years. And so when it came time to make the voiceover demo, my mom and we asked Corey Burton, because to me Corey Burton is the greatest talent alive. Um, like, hey, where should we go to make the demo? And he was like, well, you should go right here to Mark's. Like, Mark does this, because we were recording at his studios. And then he was like, but if you're going to come here and record, I want to direct it. And so we were like, okay. So that day, Corey was directing it, Mark was engineering it. And this is back in the day of like reel to reel tape, where, it's not digital editing, there's actual tape involved. And we spend the first, I don't know, 30 minutes of the morning going through this box of that Mark had assembled all of these like little snippets of dialogue from like commercials and decades of recording these kinds of things. So we select, I don't know, 6 or 7 different like commercials, because I was trying to make a commercial demo. which is sort of where you start when you're starting out in the industry, or at least that was how it was then. So we get all of our papers. Well, one of the things that was happening in my life was that I was on a medication that was affecting my voice. My throat would get dry. I would get cotton mouth, and sometimes I couldn't talk. And so I had been trying to hide this from the Adventures in Odyssey crew, but it was getting more difficult for me to actually like perform. So this day, here I've rented, the Mark Grouse studio for a whole morning session. And I was really nervous that the meds might make my throat have difficulty. So my goal was to get in and get out as fast as I could. And uh, one of the things that I write about in the blog is that I had learned early on, if I wasn't making mistakes, they would keep me around more. And that kids that made a lot of mistakes and required a lot of takes, I often wouldn't see them again. So a thing I learned was like, all right, get it right the first time. And I got really good at that. And so Mark didn't know this. This is way too much backstory here, because Odyssey brings in their own engineering team. So when we would come in, he was just there to rent the studios to us. He never actually saw me work. Um, and so, we've got these pieces of dialogue. I go into the studio, my favorite place on earth. Corey is directing. I've got two legends on the other side of the glass. I've got Corey Burton and Mark Grau. One is directing, one is editing. And so Mark is like running the tape through the reel to reel machine, and he gets it spooled up. And, they click on the microphone. They're like, all right, Dave, are you ready? And I'm like, yep, I'm ready, hoping my throat doesn't close up. And we had booked this studio for 4 hours. That's typical. Um, I finished that in 5 minutes. And basically, I did everything in one take. There was one or two moments where Corey gave a note and Mark gave a note, and I would make the adjustment. Because at that point, I had been recording for 7 years. It was very comfortable for me to be directed. I've never had an ego about being directed. Like, if you need me to change a thing, I'll do it. Um, and so we get finished in about 5-7 minutes, which is like, to me, that seems normal. At some point, I'm looking, I'm arranging my pieces of paper and just kind of enjoying the silence of the studio. And I look through the window, and Corey does this. He's like, to Mark, and Mark goes like this. And and like they're not clicking on the microphone, but it looks like something's wrong. And so I freak out and I run out of the booth into the recording studio, and I'm like, what is it? And Mark is like, Dave, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, I thought we were going to be here for hours. I kept pressing stop. And I'm still not getting this. And like finally Corey explained it to me. He's like, we didn't know you were going to do that fast. And if we had been recording the entire time, and then Mark jumps in and he starts explaining. He's like, if I hadn't pressed stop, I would have sent that entire 5-minute session to every casting director in the industry. Like what you just
I
did
know.
was like, I've never seen a kid do that with the poise that you've got, the ability to take direction, the ability to get it right on the first. He's like, you would never go hungry again. And I'm so sorry. I kept pressing stop in between each one. And so that was a moment in my life that was pretty profound, was like to know that I had impressed two industry legends. And effectively, if he hadn't pressed stop and just let the whole session, maybe it was 5 to 10 minutes, I don't remember. Um, but it was apparently, according to them, it was like lightning in a bottle. Like it was. And then I never, this great demo suddenly is just like a normal demo. Like it you know. So
But
that's the,
if you find a
yeah.
tape player, just let me know.
No, if I do, yeah, that would be kind of fun. It's like me. I think one of the pieces I did was like an anti MTV, like it had an anti-drug campaign at the time. One was about jeans. I think I did something about soda. It was pretty silly. If I find it, and if I can find a tape player that works, and if the entire thing doesn't just turn to dust, I will gladly share it with you.
We can share it live on stream.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh, and Chris Anthony send you hearts for remembering the pie.
Oh, I love you, Chris. Oh my goodness, I love Chris.
He's probably busy, too busy to come on the show probably right now.
Probably.
So we're just texting through the messenger.
And it's a Sunday night at here. It's like getting late here on the Pacific Coast, so I imagine everybody needs to eat dinner and tuck themselves into bed here pretty soon.
What time is it for you over there?
It is 8:12.
It's 9:12 over here.
That's right. You're in Mountain Time Zone.
So you said you got to tuck your kids in, or?
It's getting to be about that time here in a minute.
Well, do you have any questions for me?
Let's see. Do I have any questions? Well, your podcast seems to be doing really well. You said 79 episodes so far.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's pretty good. I'm very impressed. And nice. So I should probably come back sooner than another 79, right? Or should I come back every 79 episodes?
Or when Chris does another interview, you can do Chris and Jimmy Barclay.
I'm sure we can find all the ways to have all the fun. Let's see what's next.
Because we're going to get Timmy Robertson and Wooten Bassett on here.
Oh my goodness! All right, you're hitting. I knew if I invested some time in you, sir, that you were going to have a fantastic podcast, and that you would get all the people would come out, and I'm certain someday we'll get Katie. That's good. I'm glad you're getting everybody. That's awesome. More power.
Well, maybe you can help me get Katie.
I could. The person to talk to is Chris. They're super close. But yeah, maybe I'll try and put a plug in for Katie. We'll see. She might have.
Or maybe
I don't know.
Maybe I have to be on her show first.
There might be some, exchanges and negotiations that might need to take place, or she might have certain structures in what she's trying to do in her career.
Or like legal matters or something.
Yeah, or just sometimes as an artist you want to kind of not put yourself out there too much so that people will come to the content. It's the world of podcasting. It's a varied and strange new world that many of us are living in.
I know she's not trying to be mean. She probably has her own legal matters on why she can't be on the podcast right now.
Katie is a very sweet person. She's incredibly sweet, and I don't think she has a mean bone in her body, unless you're a teenage kid whose voice is changing in the studio, and then she will mercilessly laugh at you. But that was the the only time she was ever.
Unless you get on her bad side, unless you talk bad about her, then she.
Well, I don't know why anyone ever would, because she's pretty great. So yeah, I miss Katie too.
So maybe you can help me get Katie Lee on my podcast.
We'll see what we can do. Well, I'll send up some smoke signals. We'll get the carrier pigeon going. We'll get the Pony Express. All methods we'll try.
I even tried the new voice of Mr. Rudiger, and he said no completely.
Gotta respect the no.
Maybe I touched a nerve by asking him too many times.
Well, that can happen.
Well, like for you didn't know your messenger was left open that one time.
Oh, indeed.
But at least you said yes, let's do it.
I enjoy interacting with the fans. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Speaking of fans, I heard you were also on Daniel's podcast recently.
Yeah, we had a great conversation.
Some of the same stuff. Some of the same stuff you talked about.
There's always little points in podcasts where there's some overlap of content, but I think that was a conversation where we really kind of went from the beginning to the end. It was probably one of the most comprehensive conversations I've had.
If I made a book, not about Odyssey, but if I made a book, could I put you in as one of the main characters?
Me as Dave Griffin or Jimmy?
as Dave Griffin.
That's something we could talk about.
Because
It
I'm
would
thinking of writing a
entirely
book.
depend. It would entirely depend on what the book is. But if someone were to name a character after me, well, one, if you were naming a character after someone, I don't know what the legal implications are, but I think you can. Like, I don't see why you couldn't. Um, but yeah, if somebody were to name a character after me, one, I would be very flattered. Two, I would want to know, like, well, okay, what does the character do? What's the story about? And let's see if it's a good fit. Or do you know you have creative freedom too? Like, and the nice thing is, both the name Dave and Griffin are kind of common. So you might put a Dave Griffin in. Is it?
There could be 100 Dave Griffins out there.
There already are, I'm sure. Like, I think, yeah, somebody affiliated with the Cleveland Cavaliers is named Dave Griffin because somehow I get linked with. There's other Dave Griffins out there for sure.
So that I could be talking about any other Dave Griffin.
You sure could.
And then they can't sue me.
I probably wouldn't. I'm a nice guy. I don't. I'm not a greedy person. I'm not trying
And
to shut anybody's creativity down.
focus on the family as becoming very placement with their radio programs lately.
They are a company that has a lot of intellectual property that they protect, and they're going to act like that. And so, yeah, they're going to protect the thing that makes them a lot of money, and as would Disney or anybody else. So
Even Paul McCusker left.
it's been, since we first started doing this in 1987, there has been a great fluctuation of people coming in and out of the show. Writers, creative team, cast, like it's been a lot of people who have worked on this over the years, and naturally lives change and move on, and at some point he was ready to go do other things in his career, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Did Dr. James Dobson start Adventures in Odyssey?
I don't know the actual history of that. I think it was something that the higher ups at Focus they wanted to put out a kids show. So who was involved in all of that? That was before I came along, so I can't answer that.
Well, I know Chris Anthony was involved in that.
Maybe yeah, because I came along after the family portraits, and that was when they were doing like the test run of the show.
That's
So
probably a question for me to ask Chris Anthony.
probably.
But I don't know how much she could go into it for legal matters.
I don't know. Never hurts
I
to
don't want to
ask
get him in trouble.
questions. Well, it never hurts to ask questions, and when people can't answer them, they'll just be honest with you and say, "Oh, I can't answer that," or "I don't know," or "I don't remember."
Or it's in my contract.
Or yeah, like I signed a non-disclosure agreement and I can't talk on that, or I forgot. Like who knows.
Like
Uh,
people when I asked the writers of the show if they can give us a sneak peek of what's coming, they can't
right.
say it.
No. They want to keep all of that secret, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, okay, Marshall Young, no, Nathan Hubler did give us a little bit of what's upcoming.
Gave some strategic spoilers. Nice.
Yeah, and like, come on, like
You got to
give us a
keep the
little bit more.
audience. You got to keep the audience, waiting for more, and I think that's a strategy I respect.
Oh, one of your fans is very disappointed because they didn't get an interview.
Oh, well, do they have a question? I can answer a question.
Well, she just wants to say that she's very proud of you
Well, thank you.
and the man you became.
What is her name? Does she have
Her
a
name is
title?
Hope. Her name is Hope.
Hope. Oh, is that Hope Schultz?
Think so. Hope, no, Hope. Roiter.
Okay, that's a new Hope. Hello, Hope. Thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate it. I love it. I take the love. Thank you.
She's like, I would, because I wanted people to interview you
Hmm.
or help me. And she's like, I would have if I had seen this sooner.
Well, maybe we can do it again, and you can put out a notice a little bit earlier and give people some time. And yeah, no, well, let's set it up. I'm down. I've I very much enjoy, the as much as I enjoyed being in the studio, which that was probably one of my favorite experiences as an artist. Um, the beauty of this phase of it is that now I get to interact with the fans, and I never got to interact with the fans back when I
Because
was
they kept you
younger.
hidden, right?
They kept me hidden. They wouldn't credit me. I never got fan mail. I never knew any of it. And so this period of my life where I get to interact with the fans is, I enjoy it so much because when an artist makes something, you want to know that people liked it or that it affected them or made them happy or they loved your character, or what all the myriad ways that we interact with the art that we consume in our lives. And so knowing that I got to make something that so many people enjoy, and now I get to actually interact with these folks and talk to them and answer their questions and take pictures and give hugs and and
And
get
kisses.
to and get to know that they named their dog Barclay.
Or
Like
their son Jimmy.
it's or their kids. Yeah, like that is mind blowing, and it's such a wonderful evolution of the experience of getting to be Jimmy, where now I get to, I would sit there in the studio as a kid, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 years old, looking at the microphone and wondering who's listening to this on the other end. Where in the world are you? Who are you? What is your life like? Why do you like
Are
the
you a dog
show?
listening?
Are you a dog? And so I never got to know any of those answers. Um, and so now to get to like interact with people who love it so much, it makes me so happy to have made others happy, and as an artist to know that your art affected people in a way that really means something to their lives. A thing that's unique about Odyssey fans is how devoted they are to this show. I can't think of too many other artistic products out there, maybe Star Trek, maybe Star Wars, that have the kind of like loyal
Loyal fan
fans.
base.
Yeah, like, and
Game of
so
Thrones.
Game of Thrones, me, no, no, I wouldn't even put that on the same category because like Star Trek is something that's been going on for decades.
And it's still
So,
going, isn't it?
so same as like this show, it has a fan base that is just tremendously dedicated. They know every episode. They can quote the lines to you. It's
They
such a
come up with
fun
theories.
it's such a fun experience as an artist to know that you got to do something like that and to have that kind of effect. And I wasn't just a guy that played a character once or twice. I was like one of the main kids for a long time and built up a real body of work doing that. And so now I get to interact with people who enjoyed that body of work, and it just makes me grateful and happy that I got to do it, and even grateful and happy that I get to now interact with folks and get selfies from astronauts and all the cool little. I never got paid much, but one of the fringe benefits now is like I get to interact with my audience finally after all these years, and I love it. I just
Did it pay? Did it pay much?
no one time session pay. Most of the episodes I did, I got like $75 or $100. You know, I created a lot of value that I never got to share in.
Oh yeah. When I have a family, I'm gonna name my son Jimmy and my daughter Donna.
Well, funnily enough, my first name is James, so I'm a Jimmy. Like, by my birth name is James Davidson Griffin. So, I technically am a Jimmy, and I think James is a fantastic name.
Well, I'm
Um,
gonna name my daughter Donna, and my son Jimmy.
nice. I think that's a good plan.
And I'm gonna have them listen to the Two Sides to Every Story episode
Have them listen to the entire series. I think that's critically important.
because I love that episode where you and Donna fight about who set the television on fire.
We had excellent chemistry. I very much enjoyed working with her.
Do you remember that episode
Barely, barely a little bit.
where your
Uh,
parents went out for dinner and the TV got set on fire? I think it was Oscar.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that one. I remember pieces of it. That one doesn't stick out as much in my memory as some of like the Imagination Station episodes and the ones that were really creative in terms of like the storytelling. Sometimes the brother and sister family dynamic got uh I don't mean this in a negative way, but just like sometimes it got a little stale as an actor, and I always enjoyed the stories where I got to do like something new that I hadn't gotten to do before. So I had great chemistry with her, and we argued wonderfully in studio, and made the experience of brother and sister. I think a thing people say a lot is like your family sounded like my family growing up. You and Donna arguing was like me and my brother, me and my sister, and like that. That's such a great compliment because when people can see themselves in the work that you're doing, then I think you've succeeded at your job as an artist, as a performing
My
artist.
favorite line ever was when you were on family vacation. Ow, Dad, Donna hit me.
My favorite line from that is "Don't they make little cows?" I always like that line.
Little cows. We're murderers, horrible of human people.
Right, right,
Tire rubber.
right.
Or when the dad was in the garage and Jimmy's like, try the horn, Dad.
I was given a lot of great lines, a lot of great material to work with, and made it much easier to then I think make audiences laugh. Is when you have great writing and a great and surrounded by a great cast. Although I think I did that episode by myself, but the pieces were all there, so the humor jumps off the page, and you know,
Maybe try the horn again, Dad.
right, right. Try the horn again. Yeah,
If it didn't work the first time, maybe it will work the second time.
nice.
Or which boredom buster? They need to make that a thing.
That is something that has like lurked in the back of my brain for 30 years. Like, yeah, whenever I'm like, I'll walk through a toy store or something and see some complicated toy, I'm just like, ooh, is that a boredom buster? Because I always wonder like how the things I imagine in my head, what is the audience imagining? Probably each of us is imagining something completely different. And that's one
Mm-hmm.
of the things I love about the medium of audio theater is that you get to be the art director and the producer, and you get to design the sets and the props in your mind.
I'm imagining like a Bop It or a Simon Flash game.
Maybe I'm imagining like some six-sided like giant like see I like I love Rubik's cubes, but I'm imagining something even bigger that you have to like some puzzle box that you have to push this in and then move that out, and this thing is whirring around, and that was always
Because it
my
played the
dream.
Odyssey theme song. It played the Odyssey theme song when Donna got it.
Oh, nice, nice. I don't remember that.
Well, maybe you should listen to it again.
Maybe I might have to like revisit all of these. It's been way too long.
Revisit Odyssey.
True, true.
So you said it was getting pretty late for you over there?
Yeah, it is. I'm getting pinged here that I need to go and do something for dinner.
Alright, well, you have been watching the Odyssey, the Wonderful World of Odyssey podcast with me, your host, and a very special fan guest, Dave Griffin.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for
I
being on the show again.
thank you for asking me again. Sorry it's taking me so long to get back to you. And yeah, let's. I would love to jump in once in a while, and make sure that the podcast is being healthy here, and everybody's treating you good, and with all the love that you show the show. Let's make sure we're loving you back.
And if you want to check the podcast out, like I said, it's on YouTube.
Absolutely.
And you can watch yourself on screen.
Awesome. I can't wait to do it.
And Marshall Younger hasn't watched his interview yet.
That's what can you do, right?
But hey, at least you can watch it for him.
I'll do my best. I'll try to
I,
keep
I
up.
will I will let you go.
All right. Have a great night. Good to see
Happy
you
4th of
live.
July.
And thank you all who tuned in and listened, and who will watch this in the future. I genuinely am happy to get to do some fan service these days. It brings me great
If you're
joy.
watching this in the year 2050, we're probably dead.
And I hope you still enjoy it.
All right, bye guys.